Welcome to Easily Entertained. My name is Bryson Olson, and here we talk about all the good things of entertainment. I finally saw the Wicked movie, and it was fantastic, to really no one's surprise. It was pretty great. But regardless, I'm going to be talking about it.
You're green. I am.
The best comparison I've seen to Wicked and the original source material, The Wizard of Oz, is that The Wizard of Oz is like the history propaganda, and Wicked is the true story documentary. And even though this movie is only a part one, I think that comparison is fairly accurate. Propaganda may be a little bit harsh, but it is definitely like the history books that are written by the winners. So, they changed the details a little bit just because it's their story to tell now. Wicked is the story of a girl who is just a little bit different than the others, with green skin, a shy personality, and magical powers that could destroy anyone who stands in her way. Sorry, getting a little too hyperbolic there, but it's YouTube, I gotta do that. But you get what I'm saying. It is the story of someone, Elphaba, who was misunderstood by the way she looked and the talents that she possessed, and when those who wanted to exploit those talents were rejected by her, having her say no and not wanting to use them for bad, they decide to change the narrative of her not wanting to be bad to her being bad for not helping them with their nefarious plans. Literally a textbook case of gaslighting the entire population. And I love that Wicked shows the complete picture of the story. It shows all sides, which I think is good. You get how Elphaba has to be really defensive in order to get through her life, because from the beginning the world is against her. And even when she proves herself and breaks through that kind of rejection of the world, like the scene of her dancing with Galinda in the Ozdust ballroom, oh my gosh, tears. I was crying. It was so good. Even after moments like that, the world just is against her because she's different. Not because she's doing anything wrong, but because those around her are, and they don't like that. She, in all her difference, stands up against the wrongdoings. And I love this kind of retelling of a classic story. It just makes you look a little bit more in depth at stories and characters, and I think especially villains. I feel like lately we get kind of some more sympathy for villains, or they have more understanding, which some people don't really like. They're like, why don't we have any pure evil villains? And it's like, well, even when someone is truly evil, there are some intentions behind it that may be understandable, not forgivable, but understandable from their perspective. Like when people think of the Wicked Witch of the West, they really do think that she is pure evil. And in The Wizard of Oz, that is how she is depicted. It is that she is just a bad person and evil. However, that is just from one perspective. But you go into Wicked to the witch's perspective, and you see that she was forced to be wicked because of her circumstances and the stigmas around her. It was thrust upon her. It wasn't that she was born that way. It's just that she is different. And like Oz says in the movie, the best way to bring people together is to give them a real good enemy. And that's what they try to do with Elphaba at the end of the movie, which is essentially the end of Act 1 as per the musical, because that is kind of how this movie is being told. Is Act 1 is this first movie, and Act 2 will be the next one that comes out hopefully next year. I don't know when they have announced that they want to release it. I would assume next year. I would guess they probably filmed them around the same time. But anyways, and it is just kind of astonishing the way they portray this narrative, and I really like it. The narratives behind it are fantastic, and I like that all art kind of reflects the world that we live in, and I think it's really no wonder that they chose this musical in specific to bring from the stage to the screen. There are just so many parallels with the real world, especially when it comes to people with differences. So I find movie musical adaptations rather interesting because I think they all vary in quality so drastically. Thankfully, Wicked is on the good side of that quality range, but why? What does Wicked do that works where others try to do but fail? And I think a lot of it comes down to passion. Is it being done to introduce more of us to the story, to tell more of the story, to pay homage to the story, or is it going to be done as a cash grab? Musicals always do well, movie or otherwise. They just make money. People like to see the musical, whether it's on stage or the movie version. You'll get awesome dance. There's usually a decent story behind it. Even when they're not decent, usually the music is what's carrying it. And people like to listen to the music, which also allows for a bigger range of exposure. If you can get the music on the radio or a streaming platform, then you get more people to hopefully see the movie or the stage play. So there's just a lot of money to go around if a musical is done correctly. There's technically a lot of money still if it's not done correctly, but correctly is going to be doing more. However, some studios do try to make money the only reason that they make a musical adaptation or original. The best example, I think, is Dear Evan Hansen. Now, I have seen the actual stage musical of this show, and I thought it was great. In fact, I saw it right before everything closed down for COVID back in 2020, and it was fantastic. Well worth the potential virus that I was going to be getting. But I thought the stage version was great. The music, the acting, the set, everything. It is just perfectly made for the stage, I think. However, I did see the movie adaptation when it came out. Eventually. I didn't see it in theaters because I thought it looked kind of bad from trailers, but I eventually saw it on HBO. It was not great. It was quite awful, and I'm not the only one who thought that. In fact, most people agreed that the Dear Evan Hansen movie adaptation was not great. And I think this happened for a few reasons. One, the studio wanted money. Two, the tone just felt off. It didn't spark that same feeling that the stage version did. And three, not much was really different between the two. When you make an adaptation of any sort, whether it's movie to stage, stage to movie, book to movie, movie to book, whatever, you have to make enough differences in order to suit the medium better. Sometimes a story isn't adaptable because of the medium it was originally a part of. Books are like this. Not all books should be movies or video games. That's a big one. Most video games, I wouldn't say most, but a lot of video games aren't going to make good movie adaptations simply because the video game medium is way different from a movie. And you have to have a very good story. You have to have key aspects of the video game that you could include in a movie that doesn't make it seem off. And that kind of messes things up. There are exceptions to every one of these kinds of adaptations, though. And I think Wicked falls in the category of these exceptions. Wicked is one of the musicals, I think, like Phantom of the Opera, Tick, Tick, Boom, Rent, which adapts well to the screen. You can change some things up and it still fits well in this different medium. While the original musical is about the same length as just part one of the movie takes time to dive more into the world, whereas the play could not. You only have so much time on a stage play, and you are limited by the way the story is told. A stage, you can't always do things the same because you're going to need a lot more to tell a bigger story, and budget-wise, that's not always going to work well. And so doing that in a movie can be good, and especially if you do it well, you can do it in a way that doesn't drag on as much. The movie also has the added benefit of not being limited, like I said, by stage limitations, stage effects. The world can seem bigger. They can do more with the magic of Oz. They can make the set bigger. They have more to do with the movie, which I think works for Wicked. And most of all, I think the passion is there for Wicked and these other exceptions to the adaptation rule. I'm not saying there was no passion for those that have failed. Like, I'm sure there were people involved in the Dear Evan Hansen movie adaptation that were excited. I'm sure the main guy, Ben Platt, I'm sure he was excited. However, passion alone isn't always going to win, especially when not everyone has the same passion. Because like Dear Evan Hansen, I feel like was more of a ploy for money, whereas Wicked makes money as a byproduct of just being a good movie. You don't have to like musicals. Well, I mean, you probably should like musicals if you like Wicked, because it is a musical. But you don't have to like the plays in order to like Wicked. It's just a well-done movie. And as such, of being a well-done movie, it just makes money, because that's how it works. If you make a good product, most likely you're going to make some good money. And plus the excitement from the director, the cast, the crew, everyone on the Wicked team, it just seems genuine. And I'm sure there were mishaps during production. It happens on every production. It doesn't matter what kind it is. There's always some. However, for the most part, the movie shows the passion behind it. It doesn't feel fake when you're watching the movie, and I think that's good. I think that goes beyond the expectations for a stage to screen adaptation, which is what we as the audience needed. Now I'm gonna be so for real. The trailers for Wicked did not sell me. Quite honestly, I thought it looked just fine, but wasn't super interested. Like, I knew it was going to be better than the Dear Evan Hansen adaptation, but that's like a really low bar. It just looked all right to me. Thankfully, my expectations were completely set wrong. What helped, I think, was the word of mouth from this movie. As soon as people started seeing it, all I could hear was everyone raving about it, which finally convinced me to actually go see it. Like, I knew I was going to at some point, but I wasn't sure if I was going to see it in the theater, but word of mouth helped. And thank goodness I did, because it was a wonderful experience. I feel like I can be sometimes a little bit picky about the musicals I like. Like, not really, but if it's a less than good musical, I'm kind of like, nah, I don't really care. Wicked is not that case, as it pretty much blew me out of the water. The choreography, the music, the story, the set design, the set design, that is something the trailers don't do justice with, because the trailers, I feel like, make it look more CGI than it is. And in fact, a lot of Wicked is real. They actually built a lot of the sets, which I think is fantastic. However, something about the trailers makes them look so fake. It just looks artificial, and I can't tell what it is. It just has something about it that looks like CGI, and I don't care for that. Here's the thing, CGI can be good. However, it didn't look like great CGI in the trailers. But when watching it in the theaters, I barely noticed any CGI. It's just something that was only in the trailers for me, and I don't know why. And maybe this was the case for some other people, but in the actual movie, actually sitting down and watching it, it felt real and tangible. And that, I was glad to see. I was excited to see that, and I think that improved the movie experience for me, because I was going into it being like, I think it's gonna look kind of weird. And I think maybe some of it is because it's just super bright, and that kind of tends to make lighting on things look a little bit weird and more like CGI. And I think like certain CGI elements stuck out more, like animals or certain effects, they just look more like that, or set extensions, like where they make the world bigger because they can't physically make it bigger in real life. That sometimes can look really bad, but I think in this movie they did a good job of masking that. Also, Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande just killed it as Elphaba and Galinda. I hadn't ever read the book or saw the play of Wicked. I have been listening to the audiobook, but other than that, this was my only major experience with the story. And oh my gosh, they just crushed it. It was so much fun. And I love when my doubts can be proven wrong, especially because now I have a new soundtrack that I am constantly listening to. It's just stuck in my head, and it's fantastic. After Spotify Wrapped came out, my show tunes era is definitely back, and this movie has only fueled that even more. There was just so much to love about this movie, and I will definitely be anxiously waiting for it to come out on Blu-ray so I can add it to my collection, so I can relive those emotional musical moments of Wicked. So now let's talk about our rating. Okay, let's talk about that. And if you don't know our easily entertained rating scale, from least to best, it is garbage, once is fine, right mood, quotable, go to, and all day, every day. And I'm going to put Wicked, I would say, probably at a go to. For some, it's probably going to be an all day, every day. And probably as I see it more, as I rewatch it, it will probably get up to that point. But right now, since I've only seen it once, it's just going at go to, because I have other musicals like Phantom, like Tick Tick Boom, that I would watch more often, and they're already at that all day, every day type of ranking for me. So that's why Wicked is going to be going in go to, but it is absolutely fantastic. And that is it for this week's episode of Easily Entertained. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to give us a like and subscribe so that you can be notified of all new episodes when they come out every Tuesday. It's always a great time. And if you have any suggestions for movies, TV shows, whatever to talk about, you can also comment down below and maybe we'll get to them in the future. But until next time, bye.